the real battery life cycle. So very short about myself. I spent about 20 years in battery reuse and recycling, both in America and in Europe. I started circular energy storage about 8 years ago. We are based in London, and we did this, or I started it really because I was frustrated in my previous positions of always trying to get data about trying to get hold of data about how much batteries that will come back, how much recycling we could expect as recyclers. And this is our second report we published in 2018. And I think we've been quite accurate actually when it comes to predicting the feedstock. This is what's available for recycling globally, historically, and what we are looking at going forward. And I think we are pretty good at it because we really collect granular data, and we also go behind the battery. We really try to understand how the batteries are used, how they are traded, and what will happen with them in the various stages, which is the topic of today, though. We have our main product, except consulting, is something called CES Online, where we publish our demand and supply forecasts, market information. We collect data about over 300 recyclers, lithium-ion battery recyclers around the world. We collect prices of used batteries and battery scrap. We also look into the life cycle of lithium-ion batteries. So this is something you hear a lot in China. I mean, we hear for many years, not least because we had such a boom of recycling already in 2017-18 in China. Too many monks, too little porridge. And alternative saying is not even the cleverest woman can cook without rice. And it refers obviously to an overcapacity in the situation and a frustration of not getting feedstock, not least when feedstock was expected. In China, we were talking about, or the Chinese authorities and associations often predicted that the batteries in the vehicles would last 4 to 5 years, which is very different to the reality. So you can imagine how that disappointment increases by time when these batteries are not really coming online. In Europe and America, we talked for a long time about 6 to 8 years because we had warranties of 8 years. So a lot of research today is based on an average lifetime of an EV battery of 8 years, and then they started to say, okay, we have an average of 10 years, and actually, it's really far from that, and that's what we will cover here. The special thing with lithium-ion batteries, if we compare with almost any kind of other battery, is that they are built in. They don't live a life on their own. You, or I don't know about who all of you are here, but I mean, most people have not really touched the lithium-ion battery. If you're a photographer, or if you're some heavy gamer, obviously also a power tool battery. Or a vacuum cleaner that you have used the pack, and you have maybe used that and gone to the recycling station for with that. But usually this is something that requires skills to, even if it's a mobile phone or if it's an industrial battery, and obviously an EV battery. That also means that the batteries they travel with the application. They go where the application is going. Of course, we in some cases batteries will last not as long as the application, and then we might replace it, and that is key here. I mean, which applications will have batteries that are being replaced? If we look at that, how many different leakage points. I don't really like the word leakage because I think it's not leakage. It's ownership. It's usage. It's trade. It's export. But I mean, first we have a life in the application, and that application can of course be exported to another market, and that is happening frequently. That is what always happened with mobile electronics and with laptops. That's why we don't recycle so much lithium-ion batteries in America or in Europe, because we are selling a lot of laptops and mobile phones to other markets because they have a high value. then they can, if the application reach end of life, or if the battery of some reason do it, it can be reused, often in the same application. That is actually one of the most important and the best use. We have a lot of laptop batteries going back into laptops. We have a lot of EV batteries going into EVs. And then they can be reused in another application, which we often call repurposing. That often we have been talking when it comes to energy storage, or EV batteries, about energy storage. These products can also be exported in themselves. And just in the end, we are talking about recycling. So there are so many points where the batteries can go in other directions before they actually reach a recycler. EV batteries can definitely last more than 20 years. We actually don't really know that, because I mean the mass market lithium-ion batteries in EVs have only been out there now for 14-15 years. I mean, we have the first vehicles coming on the market in 2008. But most of those vehicles are actually on the road. So to the left here, you see on an annual basis, which is the average rate we are using when we are modeling the electric vehicle batteries in the way we are coming back. And we do this for 30 different kind of applications, where we are looking at obviously different ways. But today I've really been focused on EV batteries, because that's what so many of us are constantly talking about. To the right, you have on a cumulative basis. Where do we get this data from? We try to look at a lot of indicators that can help us to give us that. And I will talk a little bit about those indicators. One of the most important indicators we are using both for batteries and for application is price. So what you are seeing here is the prices right now. If you want to buy a used Nissan Leaf from 2011 or 2000 up to 2015, and you can learn many things here, but I think two things are very interesting. One is that these cars that now are from 14 years, some actually 15 years, they have not been driven that far. That's an interesting aspect of it. I mean, they only have a 24 kilowatt-hour battery, so you couldn't drive that far before you really needed to recharge it, of course. So I think that affects it for sure. But it's quite interesting that, I mean, these are only the batteries are on average cycled only 70 times a year. So given that these batteries can be cycled 2,000 times, that explains often why they're quite good. Nissan Leaf are not always good, though, because I mean they were also very important. They were very early, and unfortunately, a few generations that were not great. But still, it's actually interesting to look at from that perspective, because they are still in use. We can also see that we see some kind of plateau in price, that around $3,500. That is kind of in many markets, that is what you have to pay if you want this Nissan Leaf. So even if it's 14-year-old, even if I have a 14-year-old battery, you have to pay $3,400 to get it. That is for us an indicator that will not go to the scrapyard tomorrow. That will take quite some time until it actually reaches the scrapyard. It's interesting, to the left you see the same chart, but now I just made it comparable to Toyota Prius, which is a car which has a battery and has been out there for more than 20 years. And that's also interesting in many ways. I mean, it has a better value retention. That would also go for a Toyota Corolla, for instance. I mean, that is actually a Toyota Corolla from 2011 is worth more in the US than what a Nissan Leaf is. So it has a bad value retention in that sense. But what is also interesting when we look at the Toyota, and now we're taking the really old models back from 2004, is that you see also this plateau, that the prices are really hovering around 2,500. We have taken this both from car sales site, but also from Craigslist. But I would suspect that also a 20-year-old car will be sold to your neighbor and will sold in not necessarily being listed. So my son bought a Ford Focus for 500 euros. So I mean, obviously there are cars that are cheaper like that, but there also means that there is a market for a car that for 500 euros, which is not driving right now. He's keeping it. He can't afford to change the brakes, which means that it has not reached end of life, but it's just not in use. And that's a very important aspect, and it goes back to very much electronics as well. We many of us have computers, and then NGOs and others are complaining that we are not returning them to collection, but it's actually ours. We paid sometimes quite a lot for them, and we have various reasons why we keep them. Another indicator we are using is just to look at ICE vehicles, because what we learned is that there are very few examples when batteries have been replaced, if it hasn't been for purely recalls or warranty issues. So we do have replacement of batteries today, but it's not so common. So then what we are done here in the UK, we are trying to find models which only were in the market 1 or 2 years. So we really can really follow that actual model and see how long it remained in the UK market. And UK is also good because we are driving on the left side, and which makes the cars not so always so attractive in our nearby markets for export. Yeah, so we could think that more of them are not being exported as well. And what we see here is that on average, actually, 20% of the cars are still on the road after 20 years. So I think that is really important to say when somebody say that a car will remain for 10 years in the market. I mean, we might have average age of cars for 10 to 13 years, depending on market. But I mean, that doesn't mean that it dies at that point, of course. It's just the average. If we look at electric vehicles, they are doing quite okay here. The Nissan Leaf here, the green line, is not doing well, but we believe this was an export component of this, because after 4 years on the market, you see a big drop, but after that you see a quite stable curve of these Nissan Leafs remaining in the market. And then you have Mitsubishi IMEV, which is a very cute, nice car, which a version I had on the first picture here, although I think it was a Peugeot, but the same car. We have the Toyota Prius, we have the Tesla Model S, and they are doing kind of like average, which make us think that we definitely will see them being 20 years old. So if we go back, I don't have a slide again on, but this arrow I showed what is happening of the batteries during the lifetime. The longest, the biggest effect has nothing to do actually with reuse, and not even with export. It really has to do with the long lifetime in the vehicle. Another indicator we are using is that we are just listening to people. We on Facebook, we are owners of I don't know how many electric vehicles, and we follow groups and try to understand. It's amazing, really, what they are doing. How little juice they still have in some of their vehicles. I mean, some they can drive only 30 miles, but they do it. They don't need to drive it more than 30 miles. They most probably have another car as well, and they can drive electric. They are updating them with new software. They are repairing them, and also this is important. We are really getting a business both in the US and Europe of repair of electric vehicles that can repair these batteries so they can remain longer on the road. Another thing is what I touched upon is the export, and this is really interesting what is happening. We have two types of export of used vehicles. One is the actual used vehicles where, for instance, Nissan Leaf has a higher price in Ukraine, for instance, which is one of the biggest markets for the US. Actually, in the US, the third biggest export market for used vehicles is Ukraine. And the 8th biggest is Lithuania, and Poland is quite good as well. And most of that actually will go to Ukraine. It used to also go to Russia and to Belarus. we have a lot of Chevy Bolt, for instance, which were only sold in the US and Canada, being one of the actually most popular vehicles overall in Ukraine. And Nissan Leaf, Tesla Model S, and Model 3 and Y are also among the most interesting or popular vehicles. This is unfortunately a bit old slide, but what it really shows is that in 2023, I mean, the batteries we expect starts to reach end of life, and also the cars would reach end of life. I mean, there would be a good match actually of the vehicles being sold in Ukraine. And it's not only about Ukraine, it's about Jordan, it's Costa Rica, it's the Dominican Republic, it's Hungary, which is still in the European Union, but it has a stock of EVs that is growing faster than almost any other market that is not Scandinavia, Netherlands, or the UK. So we have a lot of these phenomena, countries that really want to go electric. They don't have they have 0% VAT, they have 0% duty on electric vehicles. That's not the case on ICE vehicles, so they really promote it. And 23% of the vehicles that are being imported to Ukraine, of which 80% are used, are electric. So they are better than most other European countries right now, but they are sourcing the batteries from the US and from Europe. What's interesting is also that it's not only used, it's a lot of vehicles that otherwise would have been end of life. They would have been broken down by an auto salvage company, and the spare parts would be sold on the market. But right now, I mean, you can do a much better deal if you buy an old Tesla for, let's say, $5,000 to $10,000, and then you have really skilled people in these countries that are placing these vehicles back on the road, which is interesting because it also means that the market for spare parts also and I mean it's mainly in many of these countries. Here you can say on the leading car sales side in 4 countries, Germany, UK, US, and the Ukraine, how many of the various year models of old Nissan Leafs that are available right now. In Germany, you can basically not buy these vehicles anymore. While in the UK, there are a certain amount, but in US, it's also quite difficult to get hold of these. But a lot really are available in Ukraine. The case is the same for I mean, for Tesla, it's obviously a much higher volume car, but so you don't see exactly the same effect. You still have more Teslas in the US than what you have in Ukraine, but it's definitely a very high proportion going overseas. Interesting thing is also that when I was talking about the mileage, that we don't have so much mileage on these cars, well, one reason is that they are being exported. So we are kind of export the high mileage. It's like we are exporting retired people to Florida to increase the age. So the price is higher and the mileage is higher. So I mean, they have to pay up more. This is the rate that the average rate we are using. So we were kind of shaving off vehicles from our numbers in the US and in various European countries. So they are going to other markets. Then we have reuse, and one of the biggest indicators we use for reuse is price. Price for used batteries. And they have definitely been falling. We are following the price of, I believe it may be some 60 to 70 various battery pack from various cars or car models. And they have been falling, not least because we have more cars coming in the market. They are getting older as well, but they are still not as low as the recovery value. So as long as somebody wants these kind of values for the vehicles, they will never reach recycling, or never at that point, because I mean the recovery values I'm referring to here is also before you actually touch these batteries, before you actually done something with them, right? But when you sell it for use, it's done, it's there. So what are we reusing? And I'm right now here in Frankfurt. I'm hoping nobody's throwing me out. I found a little room here on the Frankfurt Fair, where I've been talking about reuse, and where a lot of people saying, "Oh no, reuse will not happen," just like we said 10 years ago, and still reuse is happening all the time. That is really what is holding back the feedstock. We have basically three different kind of reuse, remanufacturing, and repurposing. And a lot do actually, what we actually will do, it depends on how the battery did reach end of life. And I think one point a lot of people really miss here is the point of ownership. Who is owning the battery? And because if a vehicle is deemed end of life, either because it was crashed or severely damaged, or the cost of repair or to retain the car is just too high, then they will in some way go to a car dismantler. And especially in the US, the car dismantler need to pay for that vehicle. They need to invest, so they need to know what they can get out of that vehicle. If the battery is damaged, I mean, then they can obviously sell it to a recycler. If it's a good fair condition, which it usually is, then they will definitely sell it to the highest bidder. The problem I mean, what they really want to do is to sell that as a replacement battery. But there are several problems with that. The OEMs do not touch these batteries, and there is a warranty of 8 years. So if you have a new electric vehicle coming out on the market, it will basically take 8 years until this market is really opening up. But I mean, if you take a Porsche Taycan battery, and if you hit a stone or something, it's your fault, it's not the warranty, that can set you off $20,000 at least. So to buy a reused battery instead might be a very good idea. But then the OEMs, we are always talking about the OEMs, that we have to have a cooperation with the OEMs, but they sold their batteries. That's just like they sold their cars. So they are not really in the leader unless it's actually in warranty batteries. And in some cases also, if it's out of warranty, they obviously somebody could go to a brand workshop and to get it replaced there. Then it will also be in the hands of the OEM. But the stores there are not always so happy. Depends on brand, of course, but people are very frustrated of the extreme high prices that you have to pay. I mean, you have been paying like 8,000 for a Nissan Leaf battery. So I mean, of course, it opens up a market for reused batteries. Remanufacturing, that means basically that we are taking, we are Frankensteining batteries. We are taking two batteries and put into one and send it back or sell it back. Many of the replacement batteries in a warranty issue is remanufactured batteries. And here we also have more. It's not only the OEMs. I mean, the OEMs have been doing this, not least with third parties like Cox Automotive in the US. For many years, but we also have private companies which have been doing this for like 20 years with Toyota Prius batteries and are selling these back. And we also have remanufacturing using new cells, which is interesting. We have Nissan Leaf packs. Here it's actually with BYD Blade battery. This is not in business anymore, though I know. But there are a lot of Chinese companies using CATL batteries in Nissan Leaf pack. So you can upgrade your vehicle by doing that. That obviously means that those batteries will be available for something else, either reuse or for recycling. And that means that happens also for actual replacement. When it comes to replacement, yes, we do see replacement. We see a lot of Nissan Leaf replacement, BMW i3, Tesla also being replaced. And many of these actually have also, they started with quite small capacities, like BMW i3 had a 22 kilowatt hour battery and finally upgraded to a 42 kilowatt hour battery, and use the same design. So you can actually upgrade in that way. And that means, of course, that one battery will now be available for something else. and could either go to recycling or you could harvest it and reuse it for something else. But I guess the reason why you replace it is that the was pretty bad. I would say that this activity is one of the best chance for recyclers to get batteries early on, because it enables people really to throw away the bad batteries. Repurposing of batteries, you can do that with whole packs, you can do it with modules, you can do it with cells. It has a little bit to do of how you actually recover the battery. It also has a little bit to do with actual pack design. When it comes to different kind of applications, these are all applications where we have examples of reuse. I wouldn't say that all of these are extremely typical. I mean, a lot of them have been research funded or grant funded. And it's really a matter of, it can be local entrepreneurs, it can be, I mean, some startups have been successful and some not. But one of the best examples here is up to the right with power packs from Zenobi, a British company that is selling or actually renting out or leasing bus batteries, which they then take back and use in their own energy storage system or use in power packs. And they also buy second life batteries to use in power packs. But there is also a lot of applications which are not connected to energy storage. For a long time, the Tesla Model S module that went into EV conversion. That beetle there is even McGregor's car that is being converted to an electric car. We have lead acid drop-ins. We have boat conversion, range extension of other cars, and so there are a lot of things. And a lot of this is happening on a more or less like a hobby level, but there is also a lot of companies that have been started and are using used batteries for this. The problem, though, for when it comes to reuse, is really that we have, I mean, the prices of new batteries are coming down so much. So there is a lot of applications where it's not good enough anymore. And if you have high material prices, of course, then the recycling value also, recycling value increases both with competition, more players in the market, better technology, and if you have fairly high material prices, so you get squeezed. So it's definitely it's really a question of what we will see in the future, what really can be. But the batteries are still there, so there's always some opportunity for somebody. And we see examples of like marketplaces, and we also have several companies that are selling directly. And we see a bigger take up also for export in markets where batteries are not really available otherwise as well. But there is really a dilemma, as I see it, for companies that are involved in Second Life, and then that is actually the start with an opportunity to process these batteries. They don't find any buyer of the batteries that they would like to refurbish, and then they develop a whole product themselves. They create some kind of application. It could be residential energy storage or like industrial storage, and then they get traction for this. They get successful, and many of them, they become so successful, so now they have a problem to source the batteries and start to use new batteries instead, or overstock batteries. That is a big opportunity. And then they are leaving out the Second Life. And I framed it here in Frankfurt today that it's a little bit like people growing up. The Second Life companies are like teenagers or early 20s that have a rosy vision of life and see opportunities everywhere. And then you start to get on with your life, and then you find a good business model and you do something else. And then you have new 20-year-olds that are looking into this. And this happening while the volumes are increasing. So there is a lot of opportunities, and there are a lot of companies doing it. But there, of course, we also have not always a really efficient market, because we have a lot of batteries standing and waiting for opportunities. So my last slide, it is the average reuse rate we are using, and people are always asking, oh, so what's the average reuse rate? Well, I mean, it's difficult to tell, because as the batteries remain so long in the vehicles, we see that the value of the batteries are falling over time. So which means that when a Nissan Leaf from 2010 will reach end of life in 2030, that battery will compete with other reused batteries from or from vehicles that were sold in much higher volume than the early Nissan Leaf in 2010. So only like 1% of some Polestars or some Seekers or whatever will be much higher volume, even from like crashed vehicles, than those batteries, and they will obviously be much better. So because of this, we believe that more and more batteries will go to recycling, but it will take time. And that's back to my point that the big issue here for recyclers is that many have expected end of life batteries from vehicles far too early. And due to export, of course, a lot of them will not be available at all. So that's that's my presentation. Thanks a lot for listening. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm usually writing on this and a lot about recycling as well. And I have no idea about where we are time-wise, but I'm happy to take questions if you have any. If not, I will leave you for the Frankfurt sun, and wish you a good evening or a good day wherever you are. And thanks a lot for listening, and hope to see you in another